What is the secret behind a six-figure launch?
The secret is you need to understand who is the target client that you're talking to specifically, so you understand what they're willing to do so you can get them from A to B. They want to get from pain to solution. The journey to success is filled with self-awareness. I see this all the time with people. They want the outcome so bad, but they are not willing to become the person that they need to become in order to get to that outcome.
Lara Acosta made over $1.5 million with no sales calls, no ads, and simple funnels. She's one of the most lethal operators in the personal branding space, and in this episode we break down how she launched products like Content Code and Creator Capital, generating six figures in one single week using nothing but LinkedIn, a Stripe link, and a simple landing page. We go deep into building high converting content without burning out, creating launch systems without over engineering, using AI to scale content that actually sounds like you, writing emails that sell without sounding like a sleazebag. If you're a creator, consultant, or coach, tired of bloated funnels and bro marketing, this one will rewire your entire thinking completely. What is the secret behind a six-figure launch?
The secret is weaponized incompetence, I think. I've been thinking about this as I wrote an email this morning about what actually made it succeed the most. And it wasn't the insane inputs of deep research, consultancy calls, all these books and all of these YouTube videos that I tend to gravitate towards when something's not working. When something's not working, instead of going to or get to all of these help, which does work, the main thing that moves the needle is just doing the thing that I would have done when I started launching things and doing product launches, which was having ignorance, because ignorance is often bliss. So when you're ignorant about what the best strategy for a launch is, or what the best offer style is, or what the best input to get the highest outputs is, you are more likely to do everything that makes absolutely no sense in order to get to your output that you actually desire. Because that's what I did at the start, because I didn't know enough. So I had to fill in that gap. And then over time, when I arrived to Bali and you and I were chatting, I had to go back to the very basics of just throw shit until something sticks. And then that is what weaponized incompetence really is being on the both sides of the bell curve, where one side is like, fuck it, we bowl. And the middle is, I need to do deep research. I need to have all of these surveys done. I need to have the perfect landing page. The website is not loading at 0.1% speed, whatever it is. And then just trying everything. When we were talking about when the launch wasn't moving as fast as I wanted it to, you and I spoke about, okay, do the DM game, do the emails, do the Word document. And they are things that I would have done in the past, but because I'm so stuck in this version of like what worked before needs to work again, because by now I have it systematized, then that thing ultimately does fail, because you try to over optimize for these things that you think are going to work. But underlying all of that, it all came back to the very fundamental basics, which is throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks, and don't stop until it works, which is what essentially made the last 2 days our highest revenue, like gross revenue days, which is obviously very predictable as like launches, and we can go about like how FOMO and curiosity and all of these happen. But ultimately, it was making the most weirdest inputs to get the output that I decided.
Would you say though that it's been the stuff that you've done from day one, right? Because similar to you, I always say in the bell curve, you just have make good content, sell simple stuff at the bottom, and also at the very top. And in the middle, then there's like GHL, and there's all the automations, and there's ConvertKit, and there's Substack. But like you've done six figures in a week several times, and cohorts is your thing. Like you're like a cohort queen, and you did that 2 years ago, and you knew very little bit of online space, but you knew pent up demand, and then funneling people into a simple product. And now it sounds like after going through all the bells and whistles, you went back to the same thing that got you there in the first place, which was just make good content, get people to a webinar, showcase them that you can bridge the gap, and then just give them a product that's going to help them. Just want to take one quick break to ask you one question. Have you been enjoying these episodes? Because if you have, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel so that more people can see these episodes and be influenced to build an online business this year? Thank you.
So, well, I think that is just, that is very basic. Cool. That sounds so simple. It just feels too good to be true. And then as entrepreneurs and humans, because we are over optimizers and high achievers, we try to find the most optimal way to get there. And then we start seeing all of these people talking about, oh, you need to start introducing curiosity, and you need to start doing all these left turns and right turns onto how you position your product. And it needs to be mystical, it needs to be all of like elusive, and it has to be overly complex. And I try to do that because I enjoy it, because ultimately I'm a storyteller, and storytelling comes from a lot of fiction. But then when it didn't work, when that little storytelling line that I really wanted to run as I wanted to create this like new idea of a launch didn't work, went back to basics, create good content, sell good shit.
But I still think though that what you've done, so you've done a launch, 6 figures in a launch. You've done 1.5 million over the span of like 18 months. I still think that nothing has changed, but maybe the expectation that maybe you felt that it would have came easier or simpler. But the launch strategy still worked. It's just the fact that it's just the time, right? For the most part, most sales come in the last 24 hours, as we know. But I've had this with clients whereby they lose their mind and almost want to jump ship the 10 days out. But there is an element of like, when you let the thing ride out, you still got the result that you're always going to get. Does that make sense?
Yes. Unfortunately, as you probably know, and you probably are as well, patience is a virtue that I lack. And so even if you know that ultimately the last 2 days of a launch are going to be the most profitable ones, or the ones where you get the most demand, you are trying to sort of predict via data and validation how that is going to end up looking. Because usually the first day of launch and the second day are good indicators of what the next few days are going to look like, right? And this time around, the launch lasted 10 days. I usually run them for 5 days, right? The actual launch lasted 5 days, no, 10 days. The pre-launch lasted 5 days. So overall, it's been a 15-day window, right? 15 days in the long, like a grand scheme, is nothing. But to someone that's living and breathing this in the trenches, having little to no sleep, trying to over-optimize everything and predict what's going to happen with the outputs, it feels like 2 years. Like my eye bags have become twice as large because I haven't slept, because I was trying to overly analyze what the ultimate result is going to be. And back to your point, yes, at this point, what worked before worked again, but my expectation of myself to be able to systematize it and do it better and easier, now that I've built a team or have more people helping or have more idea of what the predictability could look like based on my audience and behaviors and patterns and based on past launches that we've done, it's just like you still hope that you can systematize the unsystematizable, which unfortunately you cannot systematize human behavior. You cannot overly predict something. You can try and get some data, but ultimately it is down to human psychology and how they react. And I really, really tried to ignore this, because I'm like, at what point can we stop with the I guess FOMO marketing and the curiosity bias and all of these things, and trying the limited supply type of marketing? But unfortunately, it always works like a charm. However, it does feel, and we were talking about this, James Kemp was saying this, you do end up giving a piece of your soul away when you're trying to do all of this curiosity marketing or like scarcity marketing. Because at the end of the day, you do know that you maybe end up launching this again maybe in a few years. Like last time I did this was a year and a half ago. So it was very true that I didn't know when I was going to do it again. This time, I also don't know. But in the back of my head, I'm like, potentially I will. So it is also learning how to be comfortable with that unknown of how you're suggesting this to the market, which, if I need to be completely honest about it, because most of the time, and I remember when I was a baby marketer and I was very fearful of using these type of tactics, but they work.
From our mastermind with James Kemp, the way he put it was that every single time you run the scarcity marketing and you don't fulfill the promise that you're delivering, which is, yeah, we're pulling this off the table, we're changing the price, there's only so many spots available, it's not going to be available again. You were lying to yourself. And you have to live with that continuously. And it's like, okay, there's a front where you're relying on yourself, but then secondly, your confidence as an entrepreneur and as a marketer will also decrease. And the time that you actually do it again and again, because I think your prospects and your customers and your followers, they don't forget that shit, especially when you rub them the wrong way. So what I want to do is understand how you do this in the right way because you're still getting huge results. And one thing that I would say is that something that really stood out for me was when we talked about after you finish these launches and after you sell and after you sell out, you go back to being a girl and you go back to putting out that content and you're everyone's best friend, right? That's a unique way to do it. It's a unique way to do it. Now, the contrast is for us, we're like always open. People can always come in, they can always book calls, they can always get started. So there needs to be this delicate balance between like marketing and sales. And sales isn't like evil. It's just a fact that we need to understand like the paradigm shifts. So I guess my question for you is like, how do you plan out that launch for someone who wants to launch a product, monetize their audience, monetize their personal brand? And then how do you do it in a way that doesn't burn the reputation and goodwill of your audience?
So first, you need to start with an offer. Most people think that an offer has to have all these crazy promises and bloated over delivering things. You don't need to have this undeniable crazy promise where you're promising people the world, like, be able to live in Dubai or make your first $10,000 in 3 days. Like, it is not possible. You and I know that that is not possible, especially when you're a beginner. Even if you're like an intermediate, you cannot promise these type of results unless you're actually doing a done for you service where you're taking care of the entire process from A to B. But when it comes to a program, you do not have full control of what someone does with the information that you're giving them, no matter how much support you're able to give them. So bearing that in mind, when you're building an offer, you need to understand who is the target client that you're talking to specifically, so you understand what they're willing to do so you can get them from A to B. The real result and the reason why people buy, it isn't just because of the promise, it is because of the transformation. They want to get from pain to solution, right? And so if you're able to bridge that simple gap with as little words possible and with a single tiny promise that you're able to give them, such as, I'm going to give you the tools and playbooks behind my $1.5 million LinkedIn personal branding game, then they know I'm going to give it all to them, but it is on them to execute on this thing. It is not on me. I am going to give them everything they need to know. I'm going to give them all the support they need. But at the end, it lands on them to do the work. So you start there. Then after, you start planning, who is this person that I'm trying to sell to? And this is a problem that I had because my audience is so broad, like 250,000 followers. Like, that is a lot of people. And I guess not to the people that have 1 million followers or whatever, but to me, it's a lot. And there's like a lot of buckets of people that may want the same outcome, but they may not be able to take the same type of execution. So that's why the cohort is priced at such a higher price rather than my courses, because the higher price then leads you to higher ticket clients, which are more likely to be more high agency. They will take the action without me even having to imply it. And that's why I ended up loving the cohort model, because I ended up attracting these high ticket people with high ticket problems rather than low ticket problems, which is like, how do I optimize my banner? Oh my God, how do I comment 30 times a day? Like, I don't have time. You make time, you hire someone. Simple. They already know that. I don't even need to rephrase that. They know this because they either have built businesses, they've hired before, they understand how to problem solve immediately instead of the people that have never solved a problem, which is why cohorts are not for the people that are going from 0 to 1. They're the people trying to go from 1 to 10.
I think a nice way to look at that too is, so what's the painful problem that you solve for a specific user that's easy to find online? That's the one element, right? So we help business owners make more money with content. The modality depends on how we do the execution based on proximity and speed. So that can be one-to-one, That can be one-to-one coaching. That can be a done for you, which we have. It can be a group model, or it can be like info only. And where they are on that sliding scale is based on the speed and it's based on the price. And again, as you said, right, in your audience, everyone wants to grow a brand on LinkedIn. Everyone wants to have that. Everyone wants to be a Justin Welsh or a Lara Acosta, but they can't afford it or they can't find themselves on that spectrum. Therefore, they bring the bullshit problems. But I think that's why it's so interesting because we have the same philosophy, but from a different angle, which is it's not about like the avatar. It's not like I help consultants or I help agency owners. It's just that it's just problem being solved. Okay, that's problem. What's the mechanism? Right? Because this is the interesting because you've done a $99 info products. You've also done $15,000 products coaching services, but it's the same thing that you're doing. So this is a big thing for me, which is like the offer is not based on who, it's just based on what you solve. And then you'll attract that right person, right? That's why our like products and your products have people from different industries 24/7. I feel like people just really screw that up though, and they don't understand like it doesn't matter what content you have. It doesn't matter what sales process you have or funky funnels if you don't have that offer correct in the beginning. And I feel like the products that you have, obviously for LinkedIn, just hit so well as well.
It is, like you said, it is about how, like, it's about the proximity of a client within you. Like the 15K product or service, it is one-to-one calls with me every single week, and I literally edit your content. The $99 product is me teaching you how to do content in 10 videos, right? And some templates. Then the cohort is you get me for 6 weeks specifically, and then you never see me again. And then if you want to renew, you go for the 15K offer. But yes, it is the same. Build a personal brand on LinkedIn. I think we've reached a point with the oversaturation of information, the $100,000 leads or whatever Alex and Missy, or offers where we believe that we need to have multiple offers for multiple things and multiple ICPs, and then it becomes this overly complicated funnel, and then it's like you're in the middle of that bell curve meme where like, oh my god, I have so many offers and I don't know what to do. This one is specific for this one, and I coach clients solve this very specific problem, and I also ask them for it. It's just not it that is just not going to scale you, especially if you're trying to, like me, run a one person business ish type where your goal is to scale fast with high profit margins, which is something I benefit from at the literal maximum level, where my profit is, I don't know, 90%, 95%. When I first started, it was 99% because I was literally doing it all by myself. But it came from not having all of these overcomplicated offers that often are the death of entrepreneurs, because the entrepreneurs listening to all of these overcomplication systems are the ones that shouldn't be taking this advice, because that is high level advice that people with teams, with staff, with different multiple clients, with a lot of experience in the industry can do. But someone that's starting shouldn't do. They should stick to one offer, one problem, one solution, one platform. Very important. And I said this at your mastermind. Like, someone asked me, oh, why did you go on LinkedIn? I'm like, because I just felt like the right platform, like blue ocean opportunity. No one was there. Okay, so the next question. What do you think is the next best platform to come? Like, is it Twitter? Is it like this new Redbubble, whatever this is, like the new platforms? I'm like, the best platform is the one where you're consistent at, not the one where the market is telling you to go. This is the problem, and this is what I saw with TikTok. Everybody was flooding TikTok, and yes, some people benefited massively, but other people made the big mistake where they had such a good thing going, and they tried to overcomplicate the system. Because oftentimes people don't need more platforms. They need to get better at one platform and then diversify onto the next 5 platforms. I only was able to grow my YouTube from 0 to 30,000 followers in record time for my niche, not because it was the next big platform and it was the platform that I was taking the most advantage on. It was the next best logical platform for me to go into, because I had already validated the content, the offer, and the tonality, and my ability to deliver something very well and execute it extremely well, and then use multi platforms to then kind of like create that content elsewhere. right? But then people do it, they see it, and they try and copy it. There's the problem with people trying to copy Iman Gajdi all the time. Oh, Iman has a blog channel, has a business channel, has his main channel, and I need to have all of these channels. I'm like, no, Iman was only able to do all of these things until he dominated the SMMA market, which is something that people do not like, sort of like, they don't take the time to go back and see where it started taking out. And then guess what? He was able to then build a content team specifically so they could repurpose his content everywhere else. But I have clients that come to me, they were trying to build a personal brand. They ask me, what do I do? Focus on one platform, one problem, one solution. What do? They focus on 20 platforms, 20 different problems, 20 different solutions. 6 months later, they come back to me that, oh, why is this not working? Because you're not Iman Gajin, you don't have a full team.
And he did it that way. That's the funny thing, is that he did it going super, super dialed in. If you think about it, he had 6 years of creating content before he looked to create a second raw channel for his fucking glasses and a business channel for his high ticket program that I'm in, right? So it's almost like you don't even need it. It goes back to like, what type of pre-workout do I need when I want to have a gym workout, right?
Do I need creatine?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like you're completely missing the point, or even with your diet, right? At the end of the day, I just eat chicken and rice and oats and protein. And it does me. And they're like, but what about all the iron deficiency in this? It's like, it doesn't fucking matter, bro. For the most part, most people are stuck in that bracket. Does that make sense? Even if you look at the offer side, because the offer complements the content. And one thing that I found is that now that we have multiple offers, we have a front-end offer and a back-end offer. Yes, you need to keep the consistency in the messaging and the clarity so a follower will always see that consistent message. So let me give you an example. I'm obviously a fraction of the size of you on LinkedIn, quite literally like 1%. But at the same point, I just focus on LinkedIn for so many years with my podcast, because podcasts, you need to channel into a
Yeah, you were on
platform.
LinkedIn before me, I think.
For like 3 years, okay? And then it was only until we opened up IG was because we had a B2C offer. Now, to make this a little bit more simple, at the end of the day, there still is one front end and then there's a back end, okay? Which is just a good way to increase LTV. It's just a reoccurring model, okay? But at the same time, with your offer, you should only have one thing that you need right now to be able to see, can you grow it? So whether that's one-to-one or an agency style offer, it's like, can you grow that as much as possible? Only up until the point that it's becoming too much of a stressor for you that you can look to systematize it and group it out. So let me give an example. We've had the agency for like 4 years. We got the agency to over 100K a month. And then at that point, we couldn't push it up any further. It was always like one client in, one client out, one client in, one client out. And then the logical path became to systematize it, group it out, and have coaching. But we only got to that point after 4 fucking years of having the agency and having LinkedIn. And then we looked at Instagram. But to many people, a 1.2 million a year business is perfectly fine. It's just me, the mindset is just like, oh, always be growing, always be improving. And that's the only reason why I did it. But it's like, even at that point, I didn't even need to do it.
So you wanted to?
I wanted to because I was at that point and I had done it for so long and we had reached this kind of stagnation period for 6 months. And I was like, okay, let's just do it. But the irony is that a lot of it is just complete BS, right? And if anything, you can just go back to having a second post come out on LinkedIn, add like that. That's ironic, right? It's like you get so good at one platform that you can just get better content and maybe put it a little bit more on that platform. You also forget like Justin Welsh puts out 2 posts a day. And most people then put out 1 post every 2 months and say, hey, why isn't this growing?
No, I don't know. I wonder why.
It's just funny because the connection between your content and how much your business is growing is super, super tight. But people always look to the problem. They look to the symptom versus looking at the underlying cause. So we have clients that are too afraid to turn on their camera to record, but they'll say they don't get leads. So I always look at symptomatic problems versus root cause problems. And this is when you can become like a bit of a mad scientist, not over engineering, but you can become a bit of a mad scientist, which is like, okay, if we have lead sales and delivery, if the delivery is pretty good, coaching, consulting, agency, whatever, you generally just have a leads problem, which is you need better content or more content. And then you'll get to the point whereby, okay, the sales is fucked. We need to fix the sales process. How do you think about that in the context of like when you're observing some of your clients or even people that you've seen at the mastermind? Before we go any further, I have one question for you. Do you want to generate more leads for your business? Well, I've put together an entire system how anyone can use a podcast to generate more leads for their business. And the best part is you don't even need a podcast to get started. I've created an entire guide and framework for you to be able to get more guests, more clients, more customers, more people in your pipeline and generate more revenue. This exact system is available right in the description down below, and you'll be able to leverage a podcast to generate more leads for your business and be able to increase your exposure, increase your authority, and increase your influence in your industry. So check that out right down below.
Well, firstly, it is important to note to anyone that people try and copy what the greats are doing right now instead of what they're teaching you to do, which is the main issue that I have with social media information. There's so many kids out there, and not kids, like even people my age or 30, 40, they're like, oh, but this person is doing this and they have the overly complex funnel, so I should copy them because they're obviously telling us what worked before. And it's like, no, we're telling you what worked for your stage in your career, because if you're watching us for advice, then it means that you're not at this level yet where you either have the following, the offer, or the, gross profit, or the market sophistication level of understanding or anything else, that you don't understand these type of nuances that allows us to run these type of businesses with content, with me having now 5 different offers at this point. They'll be like, I have this all the time. They're like, people will join my programs and I'll tell them, okay, what's your next offer? Oh, I don't know. I want to build a community. By the way, and I need to say, by the way, communities are the hardest business models to run by far. Why? Because you need a consistent stream of people coming in, staying in, preventing churn, and then you have to consistently market it. But then it's been sold as the school has grown, as whoop.
Whoop.
Whoop. Has come, and it's like, oh, you need to build a community. It's so easy. You just get 100 people in, and then you make, MRR and an ARR, and it's like, it's easy. It's easy. You just need to get people in. It's like low ticket, $29 a month. You get people in. You just have to partner with an influencer, and it makes magic internet money. No, it does not make magic internet money if you don't have any sophistication and awareness for how business works and how to retain a client, by the way. So they'll ask me because they see I'm running a community. They see that I'm making 6 figures, 7 figures from it. And then they think, oh, it must be that easy. No, it's not. Even at a 250,000 following rate, a 30K on YouTube, 40K on newsletter, it is not simple because you have to play the retention game. It is almost back to playing the agency game where you have to one client in, one client out, one client. You need to convince these people to sign up to the thing or repay again. However, with communities, because they're so low ticket, you have to be fixing the low ticket problems. 100%. And the low ticket people, because there's so many problems to solve, right? They need to decide where their money needs to be allocated because they do not have the budget to invest in all of these things, 100%. Right? So then the community model is often worthless to someone that does not solve the high ticket problem that can double, triple the ROI. Same with a personal branding community. Yes, we can teach you how to write, how to grow, how to monetize your personal brand. But if you don't have the knowledge of an offer, if you have not done the work, like getting your first client and getting that social proof first, then the community will be obsolete if you don't do the work. And this is like the if and but and the nuance of why things work is this will work if you do X, Y, and Z. And oftentimes people in communities, they don't do the work. Why? It is not because the community doesn't work. It is because the people are not paying enough of a high price to then link it to the high output. And that's why our best clients are the ones that are paying the highest ticket. That's when I am the best client as well, right? And you are the best client. We both invest heavily on our nutrition, coaching, business, right? And so we commit to paying 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures even on the program or something. And then because of that level of commitment, it hurts. It hurts to give away. So you have to. And then so it's back to human psychology. If it hurts, then we must make it work.
I love that. I completely agree. And I think the problem with some communities is that they sit in this kind of middle ground whereby it's a bit cushy. They're learning, but they're not actioning. you know? And full transparency, we had a bit of an issue with that with our program. So just for context, we run our program off this model of content, growth, and monetization. Okay. And it had some cracks because the problem is that, right, people follow it to the rule book. So they naturally break it. Does that make sense? If I run it, I have a bit of intuition. But if someone follows the rule book, it breaks. So they were creating content that wasn't aligned to their offer. Okay. So then we changed it to offer content sales. But what happened was everyone was hyper fixated, mental masturbation on their offer. And they're like, is it Google Doc? Is it Notion? Which color should my landing page be? So they had these amazing offers that were just not being bought by anyone because they weren't in the market. So then we had to change it to, instead of offer optimization, it was offers, but running it. So you had to run it. So the second we made adjustment, yeah, you help you help founders with ghostwriting that are based in Silicon Valley. Great. Run a list on TechCrunch and message 150 people. And then I had to literally track people's inputs. So here's how much leads you hit a day. Here's how many posts you put out a day. Here's how you contact them. Because otherwise, I always say, like, the best offers that are in the dark, they're worth nothing. How many startups never hit product market fit? That's why the book Lean Startup was created. Are you familiar with that book?
Yeah, yeah.
The whole idea was you have a hypothesis, get into the market, get your hands dirty, and test it and fail. Like, the whole point is failing. You missed Tom's talk at the mastermind. This is so, so good. I'm going to release this video publicly. So Tom, head of client success, head of coaching in our business, he was a teacher and he taught underprivileged kids in Wales. He was also head of education at a company called Synthub. It's a really big, famous DJ's education business. And the whole logic is you have this thing called a C's and T's of coaching. So the first stage of coaching is you introduce a concept, right? So here is why you would need to grow a personal brand on LinkedIn. You link the concept to a problem. The problem is most people don't grow on LinkedIn because they put out AI content or whatnot. Once you establish that with Lara, and I explained to you that here's a concept and here's a problem, we need to link it with a plan. So you co-create a plan. So me and you put together a 7-day action plan. And this is the most important part. Then I leave you, go off into the wind and fail. And I want you to get reps in and actually chew glass and bang your head off the concrete so that you feel pain. And then you come back and you're like, I have this issue, but that worked. Something in there worked. And then you fine tune. And that's how you release that's how you introduce a concept. And all a program is just that 1,000 times over. Here's hooks, here's posts, here's commenting. You're always introducing that concept over and over again. And I think it's really beautiful because the problem I see is that people buy things, develop a codependency with that founder, and then don't do anything and then slap them on the wrist and say, it didn't work.
It reminds me of the book Atomic Habits when they set up two different types of groups to take photos, right? One group had to take one photo and it had to be the best. And then the other group, they had to take 30 photos for like 30 days, I think. And the best quality of photos came from the people that were doing the 30 days of photos because they had more practice and they were able to identify what type of angle created a better photo. So that is literally the same because we're trying to build a habit of not rapid execution or like rapid results. It's more like execute, understand, test, iterate, win.
How do you find it differentiating between the products that you have now, especially for new prospects that come in?
So back to the community model. What makes the community a 6-figure community, almost like 7 figures at this point, it is understanding what the single problem that these people are looking to fix and how I can bridge the gap by giving them a roadmap, right? So we have the roadmap with the courses, they come to the calls, I fix the problems. The most successful people and the ones that have stayed the most because they get the most results or they get the most out of it aren't the ones that are following the playbook. They're the ones that are breaking it. They're the ones that are breaking it in their own way, understanding that my advice is nuanced and I only know as far as I know about this thing, but they know their offer best for their own niche, right? We've got real estate people, we've got doctors, we've got accountants, right?
So interesting.
So then they are able to understand the nuance between what I'm teaching and then their real life understanding of what is happening in their own market. And this is key because instructions in the world of business are meant to be broken, or they're meant to be gone around and like step 1 worked, step 2, 3, 4 didn't, step 5 does work. I'm gonna take what works for me and then I'm gonna implement accordingly as I see fit to me. So we have amazing people, like there's this guy called Alan. He's a real estate mortgaging person. And then he's been able to grow his account, not massively, but enough to get a lot of leads every single week to his LinkedIn. But he isn't focused about being famous. He's focused about getting the input so he can get the outputs. He's doing the 80-20. He comes to the calls, asks the right questions, he's excited about things, and then he implements. That's what makes this work very well. What makes it fail for people is that they sign up. They don't come to anything. They take the course. They don't implement. We check consistently who is taking action and who's not. And the people that aren't taking action, they haven't posted because they are scared. So they're having a mindset issue. They have a content issue because, again, they have imposter syndrome, or because they don't have an offer yet, because they're too scared of launching an offer or releasing it. Or they're the ones that are too stuck in their heads at this time because they're beginners, because they don't know where to go, because there's too many things going on at the same time. So they get in their heads and they cannot implement. And then when they come to the calls, they come to calls with a question, but then they'll end up overthinking this question because they think that it either shouldn't be that simple or it feels really hard. Like there's no in between. So I think for this specific model to work, and why I love it so much and why we've made it work so well, it is we identify the problem, we give them the roadmap, people take it, implement. And if they can't implement, they come to calls, ask the right questions, they leave, implement again, come back, right?
I want to ask you about duration of programs. So this is something that I always think about, and like a lot of clients are always asking about. How long is enough to get the result, and how short is not enough to put them under pressure?
It depends again on the proximity that we're having. So if it's a one-to-one coaching program, like I had with my clients, which was 3 months, if they're not getting results by week 6, then there's definitely something not going on. Because usually, like in the agency, we both run agencies, we know that the average time for us to actually see where something's failing is weeks 4 or even week 8, like either 1 month or 2 months, around that. Because you had enough time to test, validate, and iterate the main issues that we know, either offer, content, monetization, whatever it is, whatever we specify or specialize in. But then if something's not working based on everything that we know, then we know there's something either on the back end, very important, because I didn't look at the back end before. And so is the offer actually optimal? If they're creating the content, they're following our playbook, they're doing the sales on the back end, and it's not working, okay, we have to go back and ask the tough questions. What are you doing to monetize your audience? Oh, yeah, I'm sending some DMs every single week. Oh, but we agreed that you were going to do 20 outbound messages. Oh, yeah, I just didn't do them because I thought X, Y, and Z. I didn't have time.
It's always a bottleneck. So it's always a constraint conversation, basically, right? Because I often hear this, and I'll have clients that come to me as well with this, which is like, we're not making money. Okay, so problem, symptom, we don't have money. And then it goes into like, our model is the offer, sales, delivery, or specifically like leads, sales, delivery. Where does this shit fit into the bucket, right? So whether you're running a podcast or you're running LinkedIn, you do need everything, right? But if you're in like grow your audience mode, that's fine. We just focus on the content up in the leads bucket. That's fine. That's completely, there's nothing wrong with that. I had a coaching call with someone yesterday, super overwhelmed. It was just like, bro, just put out the 2 podcasts a month. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Don't worry about all the other shit. But if you're not making sales, there's a bunch of other shit, because I think so again, from my mastermind, James Kemp stood up and he said, back in the day, you could run an ad and book a call for $5 a call, which is apparently very cheap. Okay. Back in the day, you could create content, and that content could hit a landing page and it would buy a $9 ebook, and you'd spend that money on a matcha in Bali. But those days are just over, right? So the whole like content to a VSL to a book call, super tough. Content to a landing page to a buy button, super tough. There's like other shit going on. So you could have the best content in the world. It could hit a landing page. The landing page might not be optimized. There could be like a VSL that's fucked. The headline could be fucked. And you've just trashed all the leads. I'll give you a personal story. We run a big sales team. Like if you want to make more money, you gotta have a good sales team. Straight up, right? You're gonna make more money with a good sales team. But we have a scenario whereby we run traffic, we get a shit ton of leads, we get about 50 to 100 leads a day, and then we burn half of them because we said something stupid. Someone will look at that and think it's a content problem. Someone will think of that thing as an offer problem. But the crazy scientist will look at it and think it was actually a DM problem, which is fine. No emotion, go in and fix it. But I think that's why the layers to the game, like we run a 3 million a year business, right? 3 to 4 million a year business. It's a lot different than a fucking 10K a month chop shop, you know? So this is why client relationships is often tough, because they will say symptomatic problem, but they're not even aware of the fucking 15 steps to get to the symptom to arise.
Well, it comes back to the journey to success is filled with self-awareness. How able are you to identify that the problem isn't external, it's truly internal because you lacked the insights to understand that you did something wrong? Something broke in your process, not because of someone else's fault, but all because of your own. Because ultimately, we have to take ruthless accountability for our own actions. No matter how big or small the team is, it ultimately all falls on you. So whoever then plays the blame game, and I'm so guilty of this. That's why I can talk about it with such candidness, because I am often one to blame everyone else but myself. Yet I have to come back to base and be like, where did I fuck up? Oh, when we were sat 4 days ago, and I was like literally having 20 minute mental breakdowns because everything was broken. And so I was like, who do I blame? Like this person, this person, this person. And you were like, Lara, like let's just sit down and like look at what's going on. We're like, okay. And I was like, oh my god, it's a landing page issue. Like, I don't know, my emails don't work. Like, whatever, my email. I was looking at my email deliverability issue, like the speed of the landing page, the VSL. Like, yes, ultimately, yes, they do add up. But the problem wasn't the offer, the landing page, the content. It was simply our ability to get people from point A to point B, which was sending the offer. Like, you have a Google Doc with the offer. Clear as day. That sort of fixed it, but it also fixed it for myself to understand how then I can position the product better. And this is something I said to people in the mastermind. You don't have a content problem, you have a positioning problem. You're overcomplicating the whole system by using all of these tools and resources, yet you're not focusing on the thing, the 80-20. The content problem isn't the thing, is the positioning problem. How is this product positioned differently to all of my other products that are lower ticket? And that was one of the main issues that I think I ran into. But it wasn't until I sort of sat down with myself, and I sat down with you, started talking about different things and solutions, then I realized it's not a content problem, it is a positioning problem. The product was positioned wrong from the very start because we lacked the insight and the foresight, I personally did, to understand that I needed to go above and beyond to differentiate this product from all of the other products in my ecosystem, right? And it was very easy to do at the start. And this is also important to highlight because I was basing my success upon the success I had previously when I had one offer. Right now I have 5, different products at different prices. So then people are forced to not choose me and my single offer. They're forced to choose me, choose that they have a problem, and then choose which one of the prices are they willing and able to pay, and what commitment level they're able to commit to me. Right. So not only I have to convince them that they have a problem, that I can fix it, now that I am the best person to fix it for them, but now I have to convince them that this is the best offer for them,
That
even
burns
if it's high
so much
price.
mental calories. As I've often heard, the way that I describe this is it's just the mental calories, right? They come in, they hit a landing page, they think, all these calories are being burned.
Yeah.
And all they're looking to then is just to jump off. That's the biggest problem, right?
It's like you need to remove friction from everything. Like having a frictionless approach is what often makes business tick the most. It's like, make an offer, buy. Like I think we were talking in the mastermind, like all of these people have these overly complicated funnels where it's like, oh my God, how does this lead magnet connect to this connect? Lead magnet, sign up page, lead magnet, buy. Sign up page, lead magnet, first email, offer. Like,
you know,
simple.
it's like if I go out for dinner with my wife, we're living in Bali, 1,000 amazing restaurants. I have to be like, we're going to this restaurant. And she's like, all right, cool. But if I was like,
If
you
give
want
a
to
pile
eat
of options,
Italian?
what do you want to eat?
Sorry?
What do you want to eat? And you're like,
Exactly. Or you want to go to Italian or Greek or Mediterranean or maybe Middle Eastern. She's like, there's so much mental calories. And she's like, I don't want to do any of them. But if I'm like, we're going to last night, like literally last night, driving, we're going to go to a steakhouse. It's going to be good. Perfect. And we need to restrict the amount of consumption of calories people are doing in their brain, which is tough for you because you don't have sales calls, which we want to talk about. You don't have like a sales process, right? So let me give you an example. I think, and my model, the easiest way to do this is you have all content that just says, I do X. And then they come in. So they come from content, LinkedIn, IG, YouTube. Hit a page. From the page, they see the problem that's being solved. And the next action from there is, let's say, book a call. Because in the book a call, we have different ways that we can help someone depending on where they're in their journey. I'm getting started, I'm intermediate and beginning, I'm making 1K a month, 10K a month, 100K a month. And then from there, then consultative selling is on the call. It's like, hey, Lara, I've reviewed your application. You're not a good fit for an incubator. You're a better fit for Apex. Here's exactly how we position it. It's you're giving what consultative selling is solution oriented. And that allows us to have a 45-minute conversation on a call to be like, look, you're better suited here. I'll get you better results here. The problem or the challenge that you have is the fact that you don't have that. And you also don't even manage your fucking DMs in terms of like you get so much inbound because you're just famous. That how can you separate that out in content only? It's very, 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 very complicated.
Well, I think that is where the art of the launch comes in, where we're only marketing certain products for certain time periods, and then we are increasing awareness that this product is coming months prior, so 30 days prior or whatever. Then we're turning the market awareness from all of these different product suites to just the one thing. And then that one thing is the thing that's going to solve their one problem. So we're like slowly indoctrinating them throughout a 30-day, 20-day, 15-day period at minimum. And then over time, then we're convincing them that that is the only offer. And so that is how I'm able to get out of sales calls often, although I was really close to wanting to run them this time because we ran into bottlenecks.
Yeah.
But the way it worked is naturally due to the size of my audience, I am now granted the ability to not have to have sales calls because I am not running a full biz up where like there's different tiers and systems, although we're getting there. And we might be there by the next time we have our podcast, probably tomorrow at this point. But ultimately, I like the no sales call approach because I don't like sales calls and I don't like having to pay a sales setter or whatever because I like high profit margins. And but therefore, and so forth, I then experience these different types of bottlenecks that you would be able to fix. So it is on me to understand which problems I'm okay having.
Yeah.
Okay. Because someone that has a team, then you may be having the issue that now you have to spend money on ads to then drive the leads on demand, right? Because you don't have the volume of following that I have. So you were able to then be like, you're okay with that problem. And I'm okay with the no sales call problem. That means that I may not benefit from more revenue generated immedioply, right? And that's okay.
So you need to understand the constraints of what you're playing with, right? So if
your
you're
own game.
exactly, so if you're going to go for this like solopreneurship approach, you obviously can't take sales calls. If you have 250,000 followers and you're a solopreneur, you can't take sales calls. It just doesn't actually make sense because you're going to book 50 calls a week. You have to deliver your product. So
when am I going to work on the product?
Exactly, right? So it's mathematically not correct. But then like the hybrid approach is like if you're small and you need to make a couple of sales a month, but if you sell a 5K product, you can get to 30K a month with a tiny audience because I fucking did it, right? So you can do it with a very small audience, but it's like you need to understand the laws of leverage. It's like as your audience grows up, you have the opportunity to do that. There's obviously And I thought about this a lot. I thought about this a lot this morning as well, because like it just depends on what you fundamentally want, right? Because Alex Ramosi has 4 million followers, wherever he has, and he still runs sales calls. And the reason why is because he's trying to get to $1 billion in valuation, which is like 400 million a year in revenue, right? But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I do think that like, it just depends on the product, right? It's like if you have so let's take a step back. If you have crazy velocity of traffic, crazy velocity, Eman style velocity or U style velocity, you can scale that $1,500 product to a big number.
Mhm.
And then if you can get more in, you just it's a traffic problem. You need more traffic in the door to sell that product, and conversion on the landing page move from 1% to maybe 2%. Okay. And like that's the game and the battle you play. Now, Eman still has a booker call at the bottom of $1,500 product. That's the game you play. And in theory, yes, it's infinitely scalable. Okay. But you will always be pushing more people in the front door to make more money, right? If you want to get to like 1 million a month or 2 million a month, it's a volume on the back end and front end. To flip that, the converse is like us, smaller audience, we need more book calls, and we need to fill that problem to have the other back end of selling a $5,000 to $60,000 product, you know? So it's like, again, it goes back to the theory of constraints. What constraint do we have? Okay.
The majority of my guests run content businesses. They've used content as the main element of their business to drive more revenue and build their influence online. We've been doing this through a podcast for many years. We have many guests, clients, and even customers use a podcast as their main source of driving more revenue for their business and building their influence online. And we're offering a handful of spots to book in a call with our team to learn how you, yes, you, can leverage a podcast to generate more revenue for your business and drive your influence online. Many of our clients and customers start from nothing, but each one of them are action takers and they want to learn more about how to build a podcast and a brand right around their business. So if you want to learn more and you're really interested in building a podcast, check out the link down below and book in a free call with our customer success manager, and he will guide you into how you can build and generate more revenue from your podcast this year.
It's also, you mentioned the 1%, and then to add an additional, the 2%. To some people, the stress that additional 1% to get from 1 to 2% is just too much.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's what you want in your life.
And then I've been forced to think about this very critically over the last year. Like, what business game am I playing? Am I playing the build and sell game? Am I playing the lifestyle game? Or am I playing the, I don't know yet, I'm trying to be a high performer game? Whereas like when you're playing the lifestyle business game, it's like you're okay making 10K a month.
Yeah.
The build and sell game that's infinite. You're trying to get to 1 million valuation, 2 million, 3 million, 8 figures, whatever. And then the high performing is like, I want to get to 100K and then retire. So it is, what problems are you going to be okay with dealing with that may just allow you to make that small increment? It's not going to be massive. It's going to be small. It's going to be tedious. You're going to hate yourself. You're going to be stuck in the dungeon doing marbles at 2 a.m. in the morning for that small increment. That then overall, like over time, it does compound, and it will lead you to a larger valuation. But in that moment in time, what type of person are you? Are you the person that just doesn't want to do it and rather go to the beach and have fun with friends with the money that you're making? Or are you going to take the time and fix this problem so you can have that incremental gain and then compound it until 10 years, right? You and I are playing the infinite game. We want to grow as fast as we can, as we possibly can, with the most fun as we can with the right people, right? But some people, that's just not good enough. Like, they just rather not. And I think people should really stop and question what game they're playing, because often we are misled by following the people that we think they're playing the lifestyle game, but they're playing the build and sell game. And so, and also the reverse, you think you want to build and sell, but in reality, you actually just want to play the lifestyle game. And it is important to think about.
Yeah, it's a extremely good point, and I think I've seen that a lot with entrepreneurs, even in Bali. Like a lot of guys, like, and it's so cliche, but you don't judge someone based on what they say. You judge them based on their actions, right? And I think I've just come from a tech background. I've always been comfortable having a team. It makes sense to always like kind of to scale because that's what I know. Like I've come from these companies. So to do that feels very natural to me. Versus if I was just walking on a beach making 5K a month, like I'd be fucking anxious as fuck, dude. Like literally just super, super anxious. And you build rules and parameters around that. So the biggest things for me are like my health and my relationships. And I think we're both very value aligned in terms of what we're doing. But we're also in that phase of our life. And I don't think for me it's like a phase, but I mean, we're in that stage where it's like, what else would you be doing, dude? We're gonna go for food after, we're gonna go to the gym, we're gonna go to the sauna. There's like nothing else to do. So it's understanding that, but then coming in with the goal that you actually want to achieve, right? I think that's easier then, right? That's the big thing for us is like we get on calls with people, and for the most part, I just say a simple question, which is like, how much are you making? 20K a month. Where do you want to get to? Want to get to 200K a month? Okay, is it biz op or is it a program or is it an agency? And then we make the formulations as a result. So I'll give an example with Andrew that you've met. Like sat down with Andrew quite recently and we wanted to go into like a coaching model with him. It's easier to scale. And he was like, no, I don't want to do coaching. I want to scale the agency. And I was like, all right, you're at the right place. I've scaled an agency, so I can help you scale an agency. Here's all the things that's going to happen. We're going to need at least 11 people fully drawn out. We'll have an issue with churn. We'll have an issue with this. We need this issue. We need to fix this issue. And he was like, all right, I'm 20 years old, making 25K a month. I'm prepared. And I'm like, all right, buckle up because it's fucking complicated. And that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So now we've made those decisions to get to 6 figures a month as someone who is 20 years old.
That's so cool.
But you need to understand the laws of the game, right?
Shout out Andrew.
What a legend. Okay, I want to walk through maybe some of the, I want to try and marry.
Wait, no, you were saying something before that. Can I go back?
Yeah.
You were saying how most people in Bali, we're in Bali, by the way. I don't think we said that. We made it to podcast 4 in Bali.
This is our 4th podcast on my show?
Yeah.
But then it's like our 5th podcast overall.
Yeah, our 5th podcast together. So it started off as a joke and now it's our reality. That's cool. But more so what I wanted to say was you and I are aligned in our values, and I think that's why we get along so well and why we click so fast. And it is important for entrepreneurs to find that person or find that group of people that are able to
I know what you're going to say.
Understand them to the very value-based level where you and I've actually extended my stay in Bali, which is something that I wouldn't have done in like a million years. I've been traveling to Dubai, Miami, LA, trying to see if I like abroad. And I realized now that it wasn't that I didn't like being abroad. It was more so I was around the wrong people that weren't in the same game as I was, which is go gym in the morning, lock in for like 5 hours, say hello for a few hours a day, go back somewhere else, shoot the shit or whatever, and then go back to the thing. Like it's all like we're both prioritizing health, wealth, and relationships in our own very basic, similar way. And I think meeting people that are that aligned with you will make life easier and scalability easier. So I had a problem. We both sat down for 1 hour, fixed it. Back in London, I think I would have identified the problem, stared at a wall for 5 hours, wouldn't have fixed it, have a mental breakdown, call you eventually, you would have fixed it, right? And I think there is so much value in proximity to the right people with the right answers. And even if you didn't have the right answer, you would have been able to have a conversation with me to get to that right answer based on what my thoughts, beliefs, and operations were.
And it's so interesting, right? Because again, people blame the external thing. So Bali's so fucking interesting to observe because even last night, I'll show you the guide. It was just some young kid, whatever, and he had a video before that was like, oh, like, fuck Germany, I'm living in Bali because it's cheaper and I can like have an amazing life. Same kid puts up a video saying, oh, Bali life is too simple. I need to go grind somewhere. So I'm going to leave Bali so I can go grind. And this guy's like 21 years old, right? He's like, I'm going to go back to Germany to lock in. Okay.
Wait, is this real?
This is real. And then a guy that I know, a very famous like influencer, commented going, yeah, bro, same, man. I had to leave Bali because it was too relaxed. And me as an entrepreneur, I need to be in like a very hustle city. Both of those guys are fucking broke. I know many people here that are like millionaires making multiple 6 figures a month. Dude, they get up and they work on the thing they need to do. And when they're finished with that thing, they go to the gym, they hang out with their kids and so on. It is not the place that's restricting you. Yes, the environment is important and who you're around and work together and we're grinding together, but it is the underlying characteristic trait that makes people stand out. The people that say, "Oh, I can't succeed in Bali," they're just using it as an excuse because they're just looking at girls in the gym and they're just not actually working on things. So for us, because we're value aligned, you know, we work together in like Dubai, we'll grind it out. We'll work together here, we'll grind it out because we are just values aligned, and the energy that we emit to one another, it rises us up, right? And this is why I always say to everyone, if I said it during a mastermind, there is no one that's like you. Me and you are exceptionally close in
Thank you.
terms of how we go about things. And like during my mastermind, you had spoke, you were working all day, and then I came back from dinner and you were recording a webinar and there's like lights on in your face at 12 o'clock at night. And I'm looking at you, I'm like, Jesus Christ. I go up to bed and at 2 o'clock in the morning, you're like, want to get food? And you're still up working. And I'm like, no, I'm asleep. And I think like that energy is the, oh, this is how I got lucky. This is how I got lucky, right? And I'll often put up on Instagram being like, you know, it's just luck.
I love that.
Or this is how I got lucky.
Yeah.
And you're a perfect example of that.
Thank you.
Whereas like we're rewriting VSLs like 11 o'clock at night.
Like
Because-
1 a.m., 2 a.m., nicotine.
Because
Gun.
the whole thing with this is that there is a point whereby there is no alternative, right? And this is the whole thing where it's like, well, I could do X, Y, and Z. It's like, no. If that launch doesn't work for you, you are fucked. You can't relaunch it. You have this next 60-day period whereby you haven't made money because you can't necessarily push another offer. You're fucked. You have these 10 days to get it right and you're screwed. That's it. Same with me. If we start not booking enough calls, we are fucked. We're not making new money, right? And yeah, we have clients and retainer clients and stuff, but we need new people coming through the door every single month. I think we calculated to get to like, we want to do 300 calls a month. That'll get us to $1 million a month. And to do that, that's 10 calls a day. And then some days we book 7, some days we book 5, but it's not 10. Right? And I think there has to be that element of like rootlessness. And this isn't like this bro potting. It's like a lot of people are pussies at the end of the day when it comes to what they want to do. And when you look at the numbers, you look at the data, how much traffic you need, and how much calls you need, and how much sales you need, most people hide from the numbers because they're too afraid that it shows the gap of where they are and where they actually want to get to and how they'll never get there.
I see this all the time with people that they want the outcome so bad, but they are not willing to become the person that they need to become in order to get to that outcome. So they're not willing to, you and I, and every single high successful entrepreneur, the millionaires, the billionaires that I've met, they optimize not just their business, but their entire lifestyles to become that person.
100%.
And the journey to success is filled with all of these realizations that perhaps you're not who you thought you were.
100%.
You get your first win as an entrepreneur, you make your first $10,000 and you think, oh, I'm the shit. Then you have to go back and do it again. And then you have to go and do it again and again and again. And then you realize, oh, maybe I did just get lucky. But how do I then manufacture that luck? Then you manufacture it by staying up at night, by understanding the data, by looking at the Miro boards. Darren and I will literally send each other ridiculously complicated Miro boards for no reason, just in order to maybe fix some problem or maybe be aware that there is a problem to fix in the future. And I remember this breaking point where I thought I was the shit. I was like, yeah, I'm big boss. I had 10,000 followers on LinkedIn. I made my first $10,000 a month. And then I thought I had it all figured out. But then it took me to a breaking point where I had to then look at myself in the mirror and be like, you need to optimize all the things in your life, not just business, but also your health. Like you're not sleeping enough and that's why you can't think straight. You're not doing enough of the internal work, like understanding how to communicate to then be able to sell high ticket. Because you and I have also invested very heavily in speaking because we understand the power of being eloquent when you speak, right? Because that positions you very differently to some bro in Bali that says yes, like, but, and every single time, because that is a different type of positioning. You don't have a content problem, you have a positioning problem.
And that's why it sounds so cliche, but like you have to understand investing so people invest in you, right? Like I've spent multiple 5 figures on public speaking coaching so that the words that come out of my mouth are better. And then I've sold 40K on stage in an hour. So it's like, I need to be the person to invest in stuff. And I need to be what me and Tom call a green flag client. So we have green flags and green flags and red flags. Red flags are like neediness, dependency, codependency, saying something is a scam, throwing your hands up in the air, blaming everyone. And then a green flag client, that's who you want to attract. And I always say the person that you are is the person you attract, right? Your clients are a reflection of you.
Be the client that you want to have.
100%, right? So everyone knows your business is a reflection of you, but your clients are also a reflection of you. So that's why you've seen me even at my mastermind, like the people there, like we vibe off each other. Now, there's not like we don't play, but I would say that we respect. There's it was a high level of respect.
They're great people.
And even with my public speaking coach, Michael, that you've met, he was like, oh, we'll meet once a week and we'll chat once a week. And I was like, no, dude, I'm like super busy. I sent him a YouTube video. I'm like, when you get a chance, over the next 4 days, just send me back a voice note. He'll send back an 11-minute voice note. I'll listen to it, and then my assistant will put it through ChatGPT, and we'll summarize his notes. And we have an ongoing doc. And before I go to record a really autistic video, I'll read the doc once, and that's it. Like, that's literally as far as it. And he's like, did you make those changes? And I was like, yeah, I did. And he's like, all right, fine. I'm not like, where is my ROI? Like, it's just,
when are we gonna have our next call?
yeah. Or like when, as you say, I remember, I'll never forget this, when we had our first podcast, we were in the taxi coming back afterwards, going to go for food. And you said you have a lot of clients that are like messaging you being like, when am I going to go viral? Like, dude, it's not, the reason why the goal is desirable is because it's difficult. So just because you pay an agency or you buy a coaching program doesn't mean you get goal. You have to become the person to get the goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you become the person to get the goal, when you get the goal, it comes naturally. It's like this, it's almost like there's an element of arrogance, because it's like, I knew I was that person to get to that point. So anyone that knows me personally knows that my only goal is to get to $1 million a month. It's the only goal that I have in my life. I'm married. I have my kids, my dogs. I have my home. My only goal is to get to $1 million a month. And everyone's like, is it possible? And I'm like, I am becoming the person to get that goal. And if I don't get it, and if I make $985,000 in a month, I'm still pretty happy. But you need to have that
benchmark.
It's a benchmark, because there's many people with half the intelligence of me, with more balls than me, that have got there. And that's the irony of the bell curve. We go back to the beginning. As you said, like, I'm in 8FL and I'm in all these big programs, and I've invested very heavily in a lot of these big programs. A lot of guys are bro scaler cowboys. They don't actually have a system or a strategy or whatnot.
Well, they don't know how to build a CRM.
Yeah, like they just got to that stage, which is two things. One, it's kind of funny. And then two, it's also very liberating, you know? And you often hear me say that, like, a lot of times you're 1 degree off. So I think that largely everyone is 1 degree off their goal, okay, for the most part. But that is liberating and also debilitating, because the problem is that if you're 1 degree off, you will never get there. And you'll think, it's just going to come. It's going to click, right? But there's a famous story with this, which is a plane left New Zealand to go to Antarctica. So you go in the Southern Hemisphere, and they do tours. So they go in low, and then you can see all the glaciers. And the dial on the airplane was 2 degrees off. And because it was 2 degrees off,
where does it end up?
It went straight into a mountain, and just goes boom, because the dial was off 2 degrees. So 1 degree is off. Yeah, you're warm and cozy, making 6.5K a month. Oh, it's fine. I'm going to get there. 2 degrees off means an absolute catastrophe. And I just think that a lot of this is very close to home for me, because like I've been in this game for quite some time, and I built businesses when I was a kid, and they went to zero. So it's like I've felt genuine pain of making no money, that now that I'm semi on the way of actually making money, I'm like, you don't drop this opportunity just because you think you know something. So David Dreary, Dreary, he was Sam Ovens's head of sales at consultant.com, and he released a video recently which was like, you should know that you're actually shit at what you do, because I don't care how good you are. If you think that you're great at what you are, you're going to basically fall down eventually. So you might be the best person at making offers or content or whatnot, but having that attitude that you're the best is actually going to kill you long enough. And it's, these guys were making $4 million a month, right? So I think they got a few things right.
It goes back down to the level of self-awareness you have. Like, are you self-aware enough of knowing what you are good at and also what you're bad at? Because then you are more likely and willing to learn something new despite your ego.
100%.
Ego isn't bad. It's most likely how we use it. Ego is actually really good to have. Like, you know your strengths, you can utilize them and you can actually use them as an amplifier. However, if you use it wrong, then it could be the end of you. But if you use it right, it would be the the best thing that we could have, right? I have an ego, but then I am very humble when it comes to talking to you about offers, when it comes to you to talking about podcasts, and you so as well with me when it comes to LinkedIn content, because you know what you're not the best at, but you're willing to learn, and so am I. And I think that type of attitude is what makes the best high performers, not just entrepreneurs, but overall employees. Like, I've seen your team. Your team, they're good at what they do, but they're also very much willing to learn from you. And they do not think of themselves as better than you. They think of themselves as good for their role. And then you're better than them at leading, at doing the scaling thing, at all of these things. And most people get lost in like, I am good at one thing and therefore I am good at all of these other things. No.
It's coachability, like 101. I think if you're listening to this and you're an entrepreneur, you want to get into space, the number one thing you need to ask yourself is, am I coachable? Am I someone that's willing to take positive and negative and just neutral feedback? As James Kemp says, like, nothing is neither positive or negative, it's how we interpret it. So if you're wanting to learn LinkedIn or wanting to learn podcasts, you wanting to build a business, you need to be coached, because you will be coached by the market. So Balaji famously says everyone's boss is a CEO and a CEO's boss is the market, because that will cut you up. It's like being thrown into a grinder, basically. So it's a very interesting observation, because if I look back in my journey, right, there's two things I didn't have. This is interesting. So I built a startup when I was 21. I built another startup when I was 23. And both things I didn't have was, one, I didn't have traffic and trust. And then the other thing I didn't have was any sort of, what I had was a high ego. So I wasn't able to take feedback. So I'd look at something, I'd make sales, or I'd get feedback from people that like it was a good product or whatnot. And I would over index on that versus how much money was it costing us to acquire a client? How much was this costing us? How much was this costing us? I didn't give a shit about the downside stuff or the risk stuff. I think that's why one of the reasons why I'm so big on data. Like, you could ask me any question, any area of my business, or even our client's business, and we get so focused on getting them to track stuff, because then we can look at it objectively, and then I can say, change the ads, change that hook, fire that person, let's put in that rep, let's change that structure just super quickly. And I actually have an example right now of this woman who's an amazing entrepreneur, but she gave like 10% to like a partner, and that's really screwed up the sales process, because now she doesn't lose 20% in a sale, she actually loses 30% in a sale. So it's like, objectively, based on the data that we have, we need to do things. Here's what we can do, here's what I prioritize, here's my preference in a scenario. I think that's what a CEO is, though. You know, and most people are just cowboys.
Well, you're able to identify the problem without any emotion, but just logic.
Just look at the theory of constraints, because the whole, and this is really important for client work, is like, yes, there is symptom, but under the theory of constraints, there's one constraint that's blocking everything else from happening, but all of business is just solving a series of constraints. So if we can solve the one constraint, that will move into the next process. So to make this logical, if you do not get leads, you need to create content. Okay? Without the content being created, we can't get leads. So it doesn't matter if you have a closer from fucking Iman Ghazi's program or not. It doesn't matter. Because if he doesn't have calls in the calendar, take a step back. If you don't have a setter to be able to book calls, you can't even have that issue. So this is the irony of scenarios, that you can really, really break it down. And like the issue that we have is like, we just need more calls. Ads aren't efficient. Fuck. Okay, what do we change? Okay, we need more content. Well, I can only post twice a day on LinkedIn. I can't post 80 times a day on LinkedIn. So how much money do we have in reserve? Could we put that into ads? So that is the mental model when you're in content with ads, is that you max out your audience, your TAM, on organic. You say logically, are we truly, and I mean truly, putting out max volume of content? And then are we putting out max, let's say, quality of content? That can always get better, obviously. But if we have a winner, can we put it on steroids, which is what effectively advertising is, because we have maxed out the front end, okay? And then conversely, then if you're running an agency, none of that shit matters, bro, because you have a fulfillment constraint. So that's why for me, when we had the agency, it didn't matter if I got 20 likes on a post, because I knew that all I needed to do was close 2 clients a month, because we could only take on 4 clients a month, right? So again, self-awareness, understanding the bottleneck, understanding the tier constraints, understanding for you, it was like it was probably just a positioning problem, which was affecting the landing page hits, which was affecting probably the VSL, and it was burning so much calories in their brain that they're like, I'm out. That's all people think. They're like, I'm out. And we gotta get people to stop doing that effectively as they go through the buying sequence. Okay, let's chat about the webinars. So we've been long overdue talking about this. For many podcasts, we were meant to talk about this in our last podcast, not the last one. That was a bullshit podcast. The one before that.
It wasn't bullshit.
It was a talking shit podcast.
We were due one.
Sorry?
We were due one.
Yeah, we were due one. And there is a lot of value for them. It's just that it's always going to be... I think we can do more of them. But what I would say, this is what I always said to you in the gym too, is that I prefer these conversations.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But
I'm more serious.
In Dubai, it was just more impromptu. I was so tired.
Yeah.
And so were you. It was like 9 p.m. at night. My ex-boyfriend was in the corner. So he was like, okay, I don't want to talk business right now. But it was nice. Most of my clients have seen that podcast, and I think that's why they really like me, and that's why they've stayed on retainer, because they got to see this version of me that is not polished and talking about VSLs and webinars, which I think that is why the element of storytelling and having interesting things to talk about beyond what you do for work is important for client retention and also overall connection building with potential clients and overall the large audience that you have.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes, and this is why, again, back to Iman Kaji, because we're both clearly, well, I'm a fan.
I'm a fan.
Girly pop fans, is people often enjoy Iman's blogs a lot more than his business content at this point.
His blogs.
Yeah, his vlogs.
Oh, vlogs. His blogs.
Because it just shows this other side to him that people often crave to see, because people often, they want to see what the behind the scenes of being a successful person is. And it's not just VSLs offers, SMMA content, is life, friends, what do you do for fun? And often, yes, it's just work, but there's little smidges of, oh, you have this religious story, or you come from a Buddhist family, but you wear a cross on your neck. That's very interesting. Why? And then it makes them connect with my values even more, which makes them even more aligned.
Exact same for me. Like why I incorporate like the dogs in a lot of my content.
Yeah.
And like my wife and stuff. It just adds that next dimension that I'm not just a bro scaler.
bro.
I'm a bro scaler with dogs.
Yeah. 5. Cool. 5.
4 dogs, 2 cats.
2 cats.
Yeah.
More to come.
More to come. But I do want to talk about how you run webinars, because the market awareness or the market, you also talk about the shifts in market. People say, I don't agree with this, but that webinars are like outdated.
Who says that?
People say that.
They say that?
People say that, yeah.
Who said that? Cancelled.
I think
Webinars print money.
Yeah, they do. But I want to walk through, how do you create demand for them without creating noise? Especially when you're running a launch, right? It's just like, we got this launch. We have a webinar. I feel like there can be more confusion. I'm always worried about the confusion part. And then when you run the webinar, how do you run the structure of it, and how do you sell elegantly on it?
Back to the, what did I call it at the start? I forgot. What was it? Oh, weaponized incompetence. So back to weaponized incompetence. By the point I'm starting to run webinars, I'm starting to ramming them in every single day. It doesn't matter how elegant the webinar looks like. It matters that there's a unique value proposition. I will teach you how to write three posts with AI on LinkedIn in the next 30 minutes. The next value proposition. I will teach you my 7-figure personal brand in 60 minutes so you can copy me. The next value proposition. I will show you my BSL funnel breakdown so you can steal it from me. Those value propositions for me outperform the need to over systemize and over schedule and time the webinars right so the market is aligned. Because unfortunately, the market will never be perfect. The market will never be aligned. There is not everyone would be at the right buying phase at the right time when you want them to do. Like if I was to sit down and think, okay, when do I run this launch, and is the market sophistication going to be at this point, and are all of my audiences going to be ready to buy by this, then I would have actually imploded and exploded and died. For me, velocity, momentum. How am I building momentum as fast as possible? Launch day, 5th of May till the 15th of May. We've got 10 days. Everybody knows. Okay. Everybody knows. More importantly, I know that I have 10 days to go full send on this thing, and I'm not leaving anything as I wish I had done this. Because again, I think I said it on your last podcast, I rather do the thing and do it wrong than not do it and regret it, right? It is better to regret doing the thing that didn't work than not doing the thing that didn't work and not knowing if it could have worked. And I think back to the overcomplication and the bell curve, we want to schedule perfect the banner, the link is the link in bio correct? Oh, I need to put the right name in the link, and it needs to be at this perfect time because everybody in different time zones is awake. I run webinars at 11 a.m. at night, p.m. at night, at 2 a.m., at 5 p.m., 4 p.m. It didn't matter. What mattered is that I needed to turn my attention into traffic, then that traffic into conversion. Whatever method I used, webinar sales, funnels, the website, I just did everything to do that. Now, with the webinar process, have a nice title that solves one specific problem. I'm going to teach you how to write 30 posts with AI in the next 30 minutes. Simple. Send it to an email list. Blast it out. Schedule it 2 days in advance, hopefully. If it's me, I'm probably scheduling it full hours in advance at one point. And so schedule it, get at least, hopefully, 100 people come into the call. Then explain the thing, solve the problem, leave a gap for understanding that the problem is simple, that we know their pain, I can get them to solution. I've given you the system, but you need me to implement that framework because you know that without me, you cannot implement it on your own. And this is how you run a successful webinar. It is not about gatekeeping the information and not letting them know what the problem, the solution is. It's giving them all the information so they know that they need you to implement the thing. So, hey, here's how you run your AI content system. You need ChatGPT, you need this prompt and this thing. However, now to get it to go viral or to get it to generate sales on demand, you need this other thing. And that other thing is my 6-week program where I'm going to explain to you exactly how to take content to monetization in 6 weeks straight. Done. Sold 5 tickets in. Right. Now, the thing that worked best this time, though, is, again, back to the point I think we didn't speak about yet. The point where my audience, because I've launched so many times and my audience is not growing at rocket speed, is not duplicating at the point where I'm hitting the millions. I'm not a million, I'm at 250. I grow by 10,000 followers every single month, which is a lot, but it's not enough to benefit from the volume gain to then be able to launch products often. Right? This is why big creators are able to monetize a lot with launches every 2 months, because they have the benefit of a larger audience, meaning more people are coming into the funnel, more people are going out, more people are coming. Like, I don't do that because I'm not diversified. That's a problem, but that is a me problem. Like, people at 10K followers don't need to focus on this, but that was my problem. So then I encountered this problem where it was more so people were already sophisticated enough on my many different offers. They had to choose. So then what I did in the back end, and you saw me doing this, is instead of focusing on new client acquisition, I focused on upselling the current clients that we had from our current cohorts. So then I started running mini webinars within my current programs. So then I had to kind of like switch the webinar funnel from new person, I explain the problem, I give them solution, incomplete solution, they need me. These people that already bought from me, the point was getting them to see that this problem that they currently have will then be solved at an accelerated way by joining the 6-week program. And so I went into my community, into my coaching offers, into everything, being like, come to this call. I'm gonna address the questions that you have about the program if you have any. And then the questions were, okay, how is this different? Question answered, solved within 2 seconds of I solved that problem. Boom, I'm in.
I remember I was there. I was actually here and I listened to it. There's a woman that was like, oh, like, I don't know, can I join the calls?
Yeah.
And you're like, do X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
How is it different? ABC.
And it goes back to the bell curve. Like
That's so obvious to me though. Like, I don't understand why you weren't doing that. That's like it's honestly like so fucking stupid.
Because I was thinking like the person that launched her first program, which was getting new people in and out. Because by this point, I'm operating from a point of experience rather than new knowledge and acquired, gain of like, I am aware that I have these people that can be upsold.
But I think this is like a lack of awareness of like LTV though. And it's not you, right? It's like it's like the whole thing. The reason being is because we do sponsorships. We play sponsorships on a Chris Williamson's podcast. Let's just use that as an example. I spoke with my sales team this morning and we focus on new leads that come in. And we do like 100K a month roughly on new leads. And we have old leads. And I literally sat down today and I was like, let's go back to people who bought in 2023 and 2024, tell them an update on the podcast that we run, tell them the data, and ask them, do you want to go back and do bigger buys? It's just like obvious. So there's like purchases that were closed. And then there's people then who booked calls, didn't close, who sit in the CRM. And then there's people then who work adjacent to the clients that we have. So let's say agencies that we buy sponsorship slots from. I know it's kind of complicated, but there's like different buckets. But the answer was like, how are we going to get to, for this particular specific product, 300K a month? It was, let's go back to people who've already bought from us.
But it goes back, for me, that the answer is so simple to you because you've seen it before. I hadn't seen it prior because my agency days have been gone for so long where I forget about LTV or LTV. And so back to what you were saying on data, it is important to look at the data so you know where the bottleneck is. So then I looked at the data. I saw I went into the data when things weren't working. And I looked, okay, who are the people buying this thing? And the people buying the thing within the pre-launch, the pre-launch did better than the first 4 days of the actual launch. Why? Because it was geared to the people that were within our programs. But I didn't realize because I wasn't looking at the data. I was focusing on volume of content pushed out, right? That was my main focus. But then I went back and looked at the data and then I was like, okay, so then based on this thing, we can go from A to B by then retargeting and upselling these people.
Well, this is the funny thing, right? Is that because of the fact that you took the time to have data, you were able to make way more money, right? Because otherwise you're just frantically running around the internet being like, oh, I don't know what to do.
And I did for like 2 days.
That's what I mean.
Then I had to sit down and I was like, what's the actual problem? Like, and then luckily, again, the self-awareness level where it's like, I could have played the blaming game so hard and I did for 2 seconds. Like I was, I'm not going to say I'm perfect. I am the bell curve meme. That's why I make fun of it. I was like, oh my God, what is it going? Oh my God, I'm going to cry down. Please help. I was so close to booking like 5 new coaching calls. I was so close to buying this 3 courses about how to launch a product. I literally was that person because you enter this fight or flight mode where you don't know what you don't know and you're scared of not knowing anything. And then it goes back to like, at least that's how I react to problems. But then, and I'm a girl. So like, it goes back to, I react emotionally naturally, but then I have to switch it to go very logical, like very broad scale mode. It was like, look at the data, bro. To me, it's like, no, look at the emotions. That's how I operate. Unfortunately, that's my advantage and disadvantage as a woman in business. But then I went back into data, looked at it. Luckily, we have it. Luckily, I have access to it. Luckily, I know where to look. Luckily, I know how to operate Beehive, Klaviyo, and look at CTR, open rates, who is clicking, who is buying, go to Stripe, cross-reference it, and look, okay, this is happening for this. But if I was a beginner, I would have had no idea where to look. But luckily, that just comes from maturity of me being in the market and then learning as I go, which is the main benefit of being scrappy at the start and not trying to scale too fast because I learned how to do it all by myself. So then I know where to look for problems and solutions.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I take the example when we were at the mastermind when you when Mark asked us, one of the guys with his emails, he was like, "Oh, my email list is cooked." And then my immediate reaction, because you've more experience with email than I do. Thanks, love. You guys check, is that focused? Because you've more experience with email than I do. My initial reaction was,
Where's my coffee?
I didn't think you wanted one. You just had a coffee. It's okay. It's all right. Basically, Mark said, "Oh, like I have my email list is cooked." And then I said, "Yeah, is anyone buying from it?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Yeah, it is cooked." And then you said, "No, the headlines are shit." And
He looked at me with such disgust. Like I felt like he hated me for that.
but this is what I said to the guys later, which was like, this is the big difference with like you, is the fact that you had gone through this problem so many times and over again and for years and years and years, that you knew that if people aren't opening emails, it's because, yes, it could be because the email list is cooked, but that's a symptom. But the underlying issue is this guy's headlines are shit. And it was for me, it was a big awakening once again as to a few things. One, how direct you are and how you can get amazing results for people because you're so direct. I feel it's kind of different when it's male and male, but that's a story for another day. But because I think like guys respect you more because they're like kind of scared of you. But it's true. And then secondly, then it's just like the laws of the game, which is like you understand the underlying thing, right? The underlying message. It's kind of how I look at a podcast.
Well, I think yeah, that level of scariness just comes from me having to become so straightforward after being let down by the market gender rules that I just had to accept.
Like
It
what?
just becomes in a male dominated industry, when you're a woman in business, there needs to be, you're either perceived as just a beautiful girl that's just being a girl and figuring things out, or positioned as someone that's scary and is standing on business. You know, there is, again, positioning matters so much. How you position yourself from the start is how people are going to perceive you. First impressions matter the most. That's why our headlines and profile pictures on LinkedIn are optimized to make people perceive us in some sort of way. The way your profile picture on LinkedIn is, and the way my profile picture on LinkedIn is, we are perceived as influential rather than friendly. That's why we're not smiling, or that's why you don't have a photo with your dogs in that. You're just positioning, and that is so important when it comes to real life positioning as well. So I'm not here to play. I'm not here to give you the fluffy answer. I'm here telling you what you're doing wrong, and you're gonna have to pay attention to me. I opened the mastermind being like, what did I say? I said something like,
You're like, if you're here so that I like say good things about you, like you're in the wrong room, basically.
I was like, get out. Like, if you're here to play, like, just get out. Like, I'm not here to give you the advice you wanted to listen from me.
Mm.
And that is important because it makes people listen and take me seriously. But if I open with hey guys, my name is Lara and I'm a content creator and influencer and I built a business and like, I'm just a girl. Do you think that would have landed well? No. But it is those small nuances that I had to implement over 3 years of my experience of seeing how people react to certain approaches to then make my own hit so hard and resonate. Yes, it may not be fair. Yes, it's not the best. Yes, it is an alter ego that I have to put on because you and I know that underlyingly, yes, I am a girl, but I can switch it on where I'm like in business mode, where I'm literally starting on business. I know data, I know logic, and I know how to react to certain things, right? But it is what works. It is what works for me, and is what's ultimately gonna get me to that ultimate outcome that I want to hit, which is 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, whatever it is that I'm playing at.
Yeah, but again, we all chat about power dynamics, and it's about how you want to position yourself. Because for me, it's slightly different, right? When I started working with Michael, my personal public speaking coach, he said I was too high in competency, or I was high in competency, like 10 out of 10 in competency, whereas I knew my thing, but I was very low in warmth. So as a result, people weren't warming to my content or to me. So I would speak on stage and I would be very overly indexed on do this, do this, do this. Whereas I had to like bring it down a level and be more focused on connecting. So you'll often if you ever watch, I have a couple of speeches coming up and they'll be recorded and you're going to be at one of them. I will laugh. I'll do things that are self-deprecating. I will ask questions and I will say jokes deliberately because it brings down a front that, oh my God, like this guy's just trying to bro scale me. And as a result, it warms people up to me. So again, it depends firstly on who you are. And then secondly, what's the messaging we're trying to convey to that person. And I've just seen like leads, sales, everything is skyrocket from being more relatable. And then let me give you an example. This is what Hormozy does, but you just don't see it. So he will stand on stage. This is a famous video that I send you, which is like his sales training. And he'll get on stage and be like, all right, this is how you build 100 million a year sales team from someone who's making $500 million a year. And then he would look around and be like, who here struggles to book calls? And then everyone's super awkward because it's Hormozy. And he's like, oh, just me then. I'm the only dummy. He's like, who here can't close a sale as much as they can close a door? And then no one will look. And then he'll be like, oh, it's just me then. And they'll laugh. And it's self-deprecating. And then everyone's like, whew. And he does that really well. He smiles because he knows he needs to smile. He don't fucking give a shit about smiling. And behind closed doors, he probably doesn't smile at all. Probably doesn't care, you know? So yes, to your point, is it fair? No. Do you need to play into the character? 100%.
Well, at the end of the day, entrepreneurs are also entertainers.
100%.
We have to make ourselves likable. We have to make ourselves resonate, especially when you are 10 steps ahead of the person that's listening to you. You have to come back to base of like, I am just like you, you're just like me. I did that as well in the mastermind where I was like, I realized this and I correct myself as well. Because none of us are perfect when we're speaking. It's like, maybe I'm coming across as too blunt. And then I go, oh, but I used to have this problem. So that's why I did it. Like I used to have no sales. My emails used to be like shit. But then I did this one thing that I'm telling you to do to fix it. And then guess what? Now I'm here, you know? And so, is being able to know how to speak and how to make those self-deprecating jokes, but also understand how to correct yourself in the moment. Yeah. When you're doing it wrong, I'm over-indexing on the logic and I'm coming across as like very scary and I'm shouting at people. I'm so sorry.
That's such a good point because like the biggest feedback that I get a lot of times when people come into my world is that they feel that they're in the same position that I was in and they feel the pain. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it sucks. I know what it feels like. Relatability, likeness, trust. And it's all, again, purely, but it's also, we can get to that, but it's also just authentic. And I know we always chat about authenticity, but like it is authentic where someone's like, I feel like I'm in your position. I'm like, yeah, bro, that's shit. I remember exactly how that was. Here's what we're going to do about it. And charisma is kind of the last piece of that puzzle of like competency, warmth. Warmth is charisma, So someone like Dakota, he's charismatic and he's like self-deprecating and he's like funny and so on and so forth. And he's a high level of charisma. And like he spoke in our program and I was just laughing for most of it. I actually asked him, has he considered doing stand-up?
Yes, he does.
Yeah. And I was like, you should actually just do stand-up. I said, you'd actually just smash it. And I think that those things, they're all skills. And you can learn competency, you can become more competent. Like confidence is a precursor to competency, right? You have to get one to become the other. Same with warmth. You can inject it, you can learn it. And the last step then is charisma. You can become more charismatic. There's literally charisma coaches on YouTube. It's a thing you can learn.
I love charisma on command.
And you can pull that into your content, written or in person, dating, everything. Everything is based on those parameters. And it's ironic because you see a lot of the biggest guys on LinkedIn, a lot of them aren't very warm in person.
That's why they don't do video.
Exactly. And it's okay because they know what their strengths are, right? A lot of the written people in general in life,
they're introverts.
Yeah, they're not going to be good at speaking. And the irony was that I was a speaker and I had to write a lot as a result. And I think, to be honest, right, stop being a fucking princess. Like, learn it. Like, you know what I mean? Just learn it. You know what I mean?
What, writing?
Vice versa, right? I was super dyslexic to the point that I couldn't read or write in school, that I was told to not read or write. And then I launched my podcast and I was like, I need to promote this on LinkedIn. I need to learn how to write. So yes, I didn't want to do it. Yes, I felt awkward, but I just fucking did it. And then vice versa. As you know, Brian Chow and June Chow, those two guys are Korean. They got into video and they didn't feel comfortable with it. So they learned public speaking. Was it awkward for them? Extremely, I imagine. They probably did acting classes, public speaking coaching. They weren't princesses about it. And that's why they are successful entrepreneurs. Just because you don't like something doesn't mean you should just avoid it completely, right? Especially if it's standing in the way of you getting the goal. If you don't like, if you want to record YouTube videos, but you feel awkward doing it, you don't not do it. You just get better. And this is so like bro advice, but like there is an element of like part of the bell curve, which is like, just get better at the thing. And it's funny because you looked at a few of my clients' videos and you said, yeah, like, you know, editing's good and stuff.
It's a great script, but they don't know how to read a title prompt.
Yeah, it's like they just need to get better. And then that kind of like hit me. I was like, fuck, maybe I just need to tell them they need to get better too, right? And it's like we guide them, right? We have public speaking coaching, we have different ways to run it and so on and so forth. And I actually give them a lot of good feedback on like how they should show up and so on. But yeah, like just get better. And it's kind of like when you're going to the gym, right? Kwa, one of my team members, like, guy's great physique. He's 19 years old. His test couldn't be more through the roof. And he's like, I'm not making enough progress. And I'm like, well, you just need to do it for 6 more years.
Hey, he's probably looking at you, shredders.
You know? But that's the thing though. It's like, you just need to do this for 6 more years because his food's dialed in, his sleep's dialed in, his training's dialed in. It's like, yes, dude, you are doing everything correct. What you need to do now is do this for 6 years. And then you'll become great at it. It's ironic, right? An observation I have of you is like, I don't think you realize like how valuable the stuff that you do has on other platforms. You know, like YouTube came easy to you. And I know they were all like your best, like, you know, LinkedIn posts effectively about how to grow and X, Y, Z and so on. But you started my mastermind being like, oh, like this is how you do content on LinkedIn. But I had to interrupt you and I was like, this is just content in general, guys. Like there's the attention market, there's the community engagement, there's the not being a potato. Right. So I think like almost like a limiting belief you have is that your content isn't transferable. Your content like thesis isn't transferable to other platforms when it absolutely is. Like,
yes, but nuance. So example, very interesting. I taught the Slave framework at the mastermind, right? Slave framework, my framework, story, lesson, actionable piece of advice, you. That's our writing framework, right? And so I saw people trying to implement it live 2 days after. They're like, oh, I'm using the Slave framework. I'm using the Slave framework, right? Wrong. Because that is a framework specific. How I taught it is like, how they've learned it is as per word by word, instruction by instruction. So this person wrote the caption with the Slave framework, but he didn't have the nuance to use it in the video short, whereas where it should be used, right? So I think, yes, there might be a limiting belief from me, but also it is a limiting belief also in my constraint of teaching what works well fast on LinkedIn may not work well fast on Instagram, for example. So if you don't have the logic to understand that this written framework can then be used as a script framework instead of just the caption, then it's not going to work. So the person used a clip cut from a podcast, whatever. They didn't understand that the Slave framework could have worked well if they used it in their script rather than the caption.
yeah, makes sense.
But my problem, the reason why I say LinkedIn specifically, it is because I know when they use these specific frameworks, the outcome on LinkedIn would create velocity and momentum rather than trying to figure out where it goes where. Because on Instagram, and the reason why I'm opposed to so far, so forth, is because on Instagram you have different moving parts. On LinkedIn you just have one, which is written and photo. On Instagram you have video. You have the overly like the saturated Instagram feed where it's like real. On LinkedIn you don't have that. So I am more able to get someone from point A to B as fast as possible with a single framework than me having to then think, oh, is the story the Instagram story hack, the video scripting hack, the captions, the b-roll that you used, the length of the caption, the hashtags that you use, the DM giveaway framework, all of these things. So it is not that I am reluctant to use this because I do know it works. I am more reluctant to teach it for the platforms because then I am trying to avoid how do I say it?
It's like the delta and the variance with all the external variables.
There's too many external variables that I am not comfortable with dealing yet because I don't know. I am not inherently intuitive in that platform yet. I am inherently intuitive in LinkedIn. So,
but you did it in YouTube, though. That's the whole point, right? Is that I completely agree with you. However, the like Slay framework, which is awesome, can be translated into a
it
reel.
works into script. Yeah.
It's just a reel, but then it can also be elaborated on with YouTube. So let's give an example. So the lean writing method by Dickey and Nicholas Cole starts with a tweet. You're familiar with this, right? And then it expands and expands and expands. It's the same shit. As in your mental model, but that is the same thing. So I think that they've had a lot of success with going from LinkedIn to LinkedIn to X, and then into YouTube on their own individual platforms, and then into newsletter. And this is how they've built such a fucking big business, right? It's because I'm just saying the mental model between them.
It is, but then it does come with the amount of reps that they had on Twitter to then be able to afford to write long term. So when it comes to teaching beginner level people who are already opposed, this is what I am over indexing on. I'm trying to optimize their interest in multiple platforms, and they're already validated fear for posting on LinkedIn. At the very start of the masterclass, I literally separated people into two groups, who's posting on LinkedIn and who's not. So I realized that there's so many people that already have all these objections to posting on LinkedIn. And there's a very small fraction of people that are posting on LinkedIn that they love it. So I had to over index on it's easy, just do A, and B. And it's going to lead you to the highest outcome with the most minimal input, right? Most minimal. Bearing in mind, I did shout at people for 30 minutes telling them that they needed to do the very non-scalable things, because doing the things that don't scale will lead you to the highest outputs every single time. No matter how much you try and over automate something, if you do the things that don't scale, you will become the best person that you can, because you're not automating personalization and you're not automating everything else that is the thing that matters. So when I'm trying to explain it, yes, I am under indexing on the sophistication and the putting them on other platforms, because I want them to win in one platform. So then they're able to be like, okay, this shit works. Let me try and then put in the reps, then put in more reps, then be able to diversify from LinkedIn post to then YouTube script. Because if you're able to create a LinkedIn post that works, then now you're able to understand that you're able to write concisely, communicate well through written word, and then you're able to now create the scripts that you really, really want to create. But then it's optimizing from this thing called the winning effect, when one single win can lead you to create momentum because you validate your idea of yourself that you're able to do one thing right, and then it creates this momentum for you to win and win again. That happened to me when I first posted my LinkedIn post. If I didn't benefit from the winning effect, which came from me taking advice from multiple people that I saw on LinkedIn that I had been reverse engineering, taking that in, understanding one framework, and then going viral that same day, I was able to then benefit from that momentum because I knew I was going to get it right. So I'm trying to create that momentum for other people when I'm teaching them, rather than having them, again, ruminate on this, oh, I can't do this, therefore I can't understand this, and I don't know how to write a post, and then I don't know how to write a LinkedIn post, then I don't know how to write a newsletter, then I don't know how to take it into an email, and so on and so forth. That's my problem that I had with that Dan Coe, when his usual writing model is, oh, I just really write a very long newsletter, and then that newsletter becomes a YouTube script, and then that YouTube script becomes 5 tweets, and then those 5 tweets I then repurpose onto LinkedIn. And then I was a person that
I did that too.
I wanted to follow that because it just seemed so simple. And the problem with oversimplifying things for an audience that isn't sophisticated enough that doesn't know what the real work behind the scenes is, then you end up making them feel like they're incompetent. But you're not bad at things, you're just not good at them yet. And that is the thing that I'm trying to get people to understand. It comes with a small rep. And then with that consistency, then the reward comes where you're able to then take one LinkedIn post that went viral and then create a viral video. Because when I tried the Danko approach, where I'm going to write a really long newsletter and then turn it into a YouTube script, well, the newsletter isn't optimized for the first 3 seconds of a hook on YouTube, right? The same newsletter isn't optimized for the small retention that a LinkedIn post needs to have, right?
100%.
I'm optimizing for logic and nuance and how sophisticated the person reading this is. And ultimately, when I'm targeting a broad audience, I am aware that this broad audience doesn't understand the other minimal, crucial, overcomplicated, middle of bell curve meme things that come into play, have to have and take part on.
So my content got 10 times better the second I stopped doing that.
Yeah, everybody's content gets better when you stop following the big creators' advice. Because again, I have this thing, and I hate to say, like Danko, Justin Welsh, maybe even Alex Osmosi are, as much as we like to say that they're equals to us, they benefited from the golden age of LinkedIn. Like Justin Welsh really hit it off in 2020 when no one else was posting on LinkedIn. Same with Danko. So they may be really good at it, and they're incredible at it, but they also have this benefit of first mover advantage that we often do not see. So when Danko goes, you are the niche, I am like, no, you need to niche down until you become the niche. You niche down, then you widen up, then you level up, and then you become the niche. Danko started by dominating a niche of one in the design industry. Then he started creating content about design. Then he realized, okay, I'm getting all the reps in design and I know how to write. Now I'm going to level up and become a writer overall because I learned how to talk about design in a very specific way. So then I'm going to take that knowledge and then implement it into a broader market. And then that broader market became YouTube, Twitter, newsletter, so on and so forth. And now he has his courses, Cortex, and all of these things. But again, back to person at the beginning stage is looking at what the people are doing. Oh, I'm not gonna copy what they say. I'm gonna copy what they do. Wrong, because then that's gonna lead you into 6 months of you wasting your time. And it hurts me, and I'm so passionate about this. I'm literally getting goosebumps about it because I'm getting so angry because I was that person who wasted all of this time trying to overcomplicate and over index on the thing that these people are doing rather than the one thing that was going to get me to that one output that was going to get me to that social proof, authority, mastery of the subject. In order to be an expert, you have to be willing to do the things that take you to becoming an expert rather than pretending to be an expert when you don't know anything. And so that is an issue that most people have, especially beginners and even advanced people. Like I speak to so many 7-8 figure entrepreneurs in the D2C space, e-com space, SMMA space, everything. And they're trying to create this multi-platform approach that is just not going to work because they've dominated the business space and they are very hyperlogical. But like you said, then they're over-indexing on the hyperlogic and they're under-indexing on the charisma, on the content, on their ability to communicate. That then when they try and over-distribute their content onto other platforms, when it's them sitting down in a podcast and they're just like this, they don't have any emotions. They're talking about D2C and MRR and like how to scale, almost like Sam Ovens. That's why his content may not resonate with a lot of people. When I watch Sam Ovens, I cannot be retained because he's so monotone. And then that might work for other people, but for a broad scale, whereas ideally where the most people that are building a personal brand actually want to get to, which is fame level status or at least micro niche fame, it is not going to work when you don't have all of these other elements optimized, especially your ability to communicate concisely and have a level of charisma or being able to move your hands so you're interactive or look or having some sort of distinguished look. When I was taking coaching from Brett, he was able to tell me something that I hadn't really perceived. One of the main reasons why I'm able to stand out in the market is because I have an accent, is because I look a certain way, is because I dress a certain way. You as well, you have the hair, you have the blonde hair, all of these things that make us distinctive. But if you do not understand what makes you distinctive and you look like everyone else and you don't have all of these things optimized, like your ability to communicate, then you're gonna blend in. So I'm in the middle of the bell curve right now.
I completely agree with you though, because that was the whole theory with my podcast too, right? Which is I was known for podcasting, helping people with their podcast. building a podcast, turning it into a business. And then it was like, we'd reach a critical mass that we can still help that cohort plus people with YouTube content. And then it was YouTube plus podcasts, and not just for podcasters, but for business owners.
Mm-hmm.
So it took 5 years to get into that threshold.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I run a mastermind, and someone's like, well, you have an entire ecosystem of products and services and offers, you have an agency and a coaching program. Can I just do that? And it's like, no, you need to get your one-to-one fucking breathwork course working. We need to get 50 clients in there. We need you to run it so many times that you've got rid of all the fat of it. You've broke off all the fat, so that therefore you are that person then that can do things, right? Because even like you have lots of small one-liners, so do I. They come from you fucking this up so many times that you're like, oh, look, I'm gonna say it like this, I'm gonna say it like that.